first time I smelled it, I was 7 years old. The scent of ozone and wet earth, like the air after lightning strikes, but coming from my father's locked basement workshop. I'd press my ear to the door and hear not tools, but a low, wet scratching, like something dragging itself across concrete. One night, I woke to find my father standing at the foot of my bed, his hands glistening with something dark and sticky that wasn't oil. He whispered, "Don't tell your mother what you hear," his voice a dry rustle that carried the faint, sweet odor of decay. For years, I believed his secret was an affair, a hidden addiction, something human. I was wrong. What lived in our basement, what he fed and spoke to in the dead of night, was not of this world. And the most horrifying part? He wasn't its prisoner. He was its keeper. He was a pillar of our community. John. For 30 years, I believed my mother died in a tragic accident, a slip on the stairs, a random, horrible twist of fate. Last month, on his deathbed, my father grabbed my arm with a grip like cold iron. The scent of antiseptic and decay filled the sterile room. His final words weren't, "I love you." They were a confession. Jake's childhood was a sun-drenched idyll in suburban Ohio, preserved in warm home video footage. But beneath that perfect surface lay a secret so profound, my father would guard it for 3 decades. The air in our house often carried the faint, metallic scent of old secrets, like ozone after a storm. It was a truth about my mother that would unravel everything I thought I knew. Elizabeth's laughter echoes through the mist, her silhouette chasing him in the fading light. This is my only memory of her. Elizabeth Miller. To the town of Cedar Ridge, she was gentle, creative, and deeply fragile. But beneath that delicate surface, something else stirred in the shadows. To me, she was just Mom, the one who painted dinosaurs on my walls and made thunderstorms feel like an adventure. My father, Robert Miller, was the solid one, the anchor. He was a respected civil engineer, the rock she leaned on, their marriage a picture-perfect greeting card. But beneath that glossy surface, the air grew heavy with the faint, metallic scent of iron, like old pipes weeping unseen. His steady hands, which built foundations, now felt a cold, creeping dampness seeping through the floorboards at night. And in the quiet hours, a soft, persistent scratching whispered from within the walls he himself had designed. The kind of love you point to and say, "That. I want that." Then, one night in November 1993, the adventure ended. I was at a friend's sleepover when the phone rang. The shrill tone cut through the late-night whispers, and everything stopped. My father's voice came through the phone, choked and ragged, almost unrecognizable. The words that followed hit me like a physical blow. "Jake, it's Mom. There's been an accident." The line went dead, and the world seemed to drain of color. A metallic taste of ozone filled my mouth, and the air grew thick and still. The slow-motion flash of an ambulance light bled across the 2-story Colonial's facade, a silent, rhythmic pulse. They found her at the base of the main staircase, her neck broken. The official report called it a tragic fall, perhaps a dizzy spell. But the air in that hall held a damp, metallic stillness that the report could never capture. Perhaps she caught her foot on the rug's edge. My father shattered into a grief so profound he seemed to disappear within it. At 35, he was a widower, left to navigate a hollow house and a bewildered son. The townspeople gathered, a quiet murmur of casseroles and condolences filling the void. "Poor Robert," they'd whisper, so strong for the boy. In the attic's dusty silence, John sifted through a forgotten box, the scent of old paper and decay hanging thick in the air. His voiceover was a low murmur, heavy with realization. He never remarried, never even dated, as far as I knew. The stillness that followed his words felt less like peace and more like a held breath. He constructed his entire universe with me at its center, my unwavering hero. For 30 years, that narrative stood immutable, the bedrock truth of my existence. Then came the damp, coppery scent on the air, the first hairline fracture. The foundation I'd never questioned began to whisper its rot. The cancer devoured him swiftly. In his final days, Robert drifted between consciousness and delirium. He muttered incessantly, his voice a dry rasp. The words were always the same: old projects and deeper, darker regrets. Then, the night before he died, his eyes shot open, unnaturally clear. A clarity so sharp it felt invasive, like a cold blade against the skin. His grip tightened on my arm, a sudden, iron strength where there had been only frailty for months. The air grew dense with the scent of ozone and decay, as if the room itself held its breath. His fingers clamped down on my wrist with a pressure that left dark bruises. The memory floods back. The sterile hospital room, seen from my own low vantage point on the floor. Robert's voice was a weak rasp, but the urgency in it cut through the antiseptic air like a blade. "Jake." "Quote," he whispered, the scent of ozone and old linens clinging to his words. The stairs. It wasn't right. His voice was a raw whisper, frayed at the edges. "John." "What wasn't right, Dad?" "Robert. She was going to leave." The words hung in the air, thick with the scent of ozone and cold dread. "Take you." She kept the tickets in her studio. I found them. The air in the room carried the scent of old turpentine and something faintly metallic. My fingers brushed the paper. It felt unnaturally cold and slightly damp. From somewhere in the dark came a soft, rhythmic scratching, like nails on wood. Robert's eyes widened, haunted by a lifetime of unspeakable horror. His voice trembled with raw desperation as he swore, "I didn't push her. I swear to God, I didn't lay a hand on her." Then, the confession. "But I saw her foot catch on the loose stair rod." The air grew heavy with the scent of old wood and cold dread, the one I'd been meaning to fix for weeks. The broken step, a gaping maw of splintered wood. I saw her balance go, her foot plunging through the rotten plank into the blackness beneath. The air grew thick with the scent of damp rot and ancient dust as her startled gasp echoed in the stairwell. And I just stood frozen at the top, my hands gripping the banister as a primal dread took hold. I watched her fall. I watched, and I didn't move. For a full minute, I stood frozen, the silence pressing in like a physical weight. Then, with trembling hands, I dialed 911. John. He was gone by morning, and my entire world, the foundation of every memory, every feeling I'd ever had about my family, Camet, just vaporized. The air in the old house grew thick with the scent of mildew and forgotten years. John's breath hitched as he frantically searched, his fingers brushing against cold, damp plaster. He pulled up a worn carpet on the staircase, the fabric tearing with a dry rasp. The brass stair rod remained loose, a silent monument to what had happened. I tore into the sealed storage room she'd used as her studio, the air thick with the smell of old linseed oil and canvas. Behind a forgotten, paint-cracked canvas, I found it. The dread that followed was a cold, physical weight in the stillness. John's fingers brushed the brittle, faded airline folder, disturbing decades of dust. Inside lay 2 one-way tickets to San Francisco, dated November 5th, 1993. One was for Elizabeth Miller, the other for a Jacob Miller. His voice dropped to a whisper, thick with grim realization. I found her escape plan. She was running, dragging me with her. All those perfect family photos lining the walls. They weren't memories to cherish. They were her prison walls. John sat at his father's weathered desk, the oak groaning under his weight. The air smelled of old paper and something metallic, like dried ink or rust. His father didn't kill her with his hands. He killed her with inaction. A sin of omission so profound, it might as well have been a shove. Legally, it wasn't murder. The courts would see no crime. But morally? That question hung in the damp air, thick with the scent of ozone after a storm. The distinction felt like a cold, sticky residue on the skin, a technicality that couldn't scrub away the truth. In the heavy silence, only the faint scratching of branches against glass answered. Every rational defense crumbled under the weight of that single, unspoken verdict. A primal dread took hold, as if the very walls whispered condemnation. The law might absolve, but the soul knew better. It was murder in every way that truly mattered. In every way that mattered. His eyes darted between the unsecured rod and his wife's terrified face. He squeezed his eyes shut, drawing a ragged breath that tasted of ozone and stale air. When his eyes snapped open again, his expression shattered into pure, panicked grief. He lunged for the phone, the sticky receiver cold against his palm as he realized. In that split second, he could have been a husband. He could have tried to save her. Instead, he chose to become a warden. He saw his problem, a wife poised to vanish with his son, and a solution presented by a household fault. The air grew heavy with the scent of ozone and damp concrete. A low hum vibrated through the floorboards, and he accepted it. He gave me a wonderful childhood. He coached my teams, he paid for college, he walked me down the aisle. He was, by every measure, a perfect father. But he built that fatherhood on the grave of my mother. Every lullaby, every lesson, every whispered, "I love you, son," had they ever been real? Or were they just the lifelong penance of a murderer? The air in the room grew heavy, thick with the scent of old paper and a metallic tang. His breath hitched as the camera pulled back, revealing the terrible truth of his entire existence. From outside the window, John stands alone in the well-lit room, clutching the photograph and the tickets. His voice, a low murmur, reveals the hidden truth. This was not a crime of passion, but a calculated act of quiet, chilling convenience. The perfect murder, no weapon, no struggle, just the cold, metallic scent of a secret kept for 30 years. At the top of the stairs, a man stood motionless, making the most terrible choice of his life: to do nothing. The screen slowly faded to black, and John's final words emerged as a haunted whisper. He gave me everything, and now I must live with the truth that it all belonged to her first. He stole my mother, then spent a lifetime trying to become her. The air grew thick with the scent of old perfume and decay. A primal dread took hold as I watched him mimic her every gesture. What is the greater crime? The act of violence? Or this slow, consuming erasure? Or the silence that permits it? A final, shuddering thump echoes in the chest cavity, then ceases. The world contracts to a pinprick of awareness, smothered by a sudden, profound stillness. In the void left behind, only the memory of sound remains, and the creeping chill of the air against motionless skin.